Good morning, children. Welcome back to our online classes, in which we have already started with chapter number 1, Reproduction in Organisms. Today we will continue with the same chapter. In our last video, we have started with events in sexual reproduction, and we have learned that there are 3 events in sexual reproduction, that is pre-fertilization events, fertilization, and post-fertilization events. And we have already started with the pre-fertilization events, in which we have started with gametogenesis, and we have learned that it is the process of formation of haploid male and female gametes. Okay, we have learned that gametes may be homogametes or isogametes, or they may be heterogametes. And in heterogametes, the male gamete is called anthrazoid or sperm, and the female gamete is called the ovum. And if the parental body is haploid, gametes are formed by mitosis, which is equational division, and if the parental body is diploid, gametes are formed by meiosis. And an organism may be homothallic or monoecious, or heterothallic or dioecious. Today we will start with the second event of pre-fertilization changes or pre-fertilization events, that is gamete transfer. After the formation of gametes, male and female gametes which are produced, they should come in physical association with each other, so that they can fuse with each other. In some algae and fungi, both male and female gametes are motile, means they can move from one place to another place. Whereas in majority of the organisms, male gametes are motile and female gametes are stationary. Okay, so male gametes can move, whereas the female gametes, they are non-motile, they are stationary. And in simple plants like algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, water act as the medium for the transfer of gametes. During this transfer, a large number of male gametes fail to reach the female gametes, and to fulfill this loss, the number of male gametes produced is several thousand times the number of female gametes produced. Okay. Now, in seed plants, pollen grains carry male gametes that have to be transferred to stigma to carry out the process of fertilization, and ovule carries the egg. When anther bursts, a large number of pollen grains are released. These pollen grains easily get transferred in bisexual plants like peas. However, in cross-pollinating plants, including dioecious plants, help of an agent, and that agent may be either wind, water, insect, is required for the transfer of pollen grain to the stigma of the pistil. And this transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is known as pollination. On reaching stigma, the pollen grains germinate, and a tube-like structure called the pollen tube comes out of it. Pollen tube carries male gamete and grows down through the style until it reaches the ovule situated in the ovary. On reaching ovule, pollen tube enters into it and releases male gamete near the egg. In unisexual organisms must evolve special mechanism for gamete transfer. Example is copulatory organs. Okay, so that is all for the gamete transfer process. Now the second event of the sexual reproduction is fertilization. The process of fusion of male and female gamete is known as fertilization, or it is called syngamy, and it results in the formation of a diploid cell which is called zygote. And fertilization is of two types. The first one is external fertilization, and in majority of the aquatic organisms like algae, fish, and in amphibians, the process of fertilization takes place outside the body of the organisms, that is in water. This type of gamete fusion, or you can say fertilization, is called external fertilization. To enhance the chances of fertilization, the organisms exhibiting external fertilization discharge a large number of gametes in water. Example is bonyfish, frogs, etc. And by this process, a large number of offsprings are produced with the disadvantage of them being vulnerable to predators. This threatens their survival up to adulthood. Okay. Now the second type of fertilization is internal fertilization. In most of the terrestrial organisms, example fungi, higher animals like reptiles, birds and mammals, and majority of the plants such as bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms, the process of fertilization takes place inside the body of organisms, and this type of fertilization or gamete fusion is called internal fertilization. In the organisms exhibiting internal fertilization, non-motile egg is formed inside the female body where it fuses with the male gamete, that is motile. The number of ova produced are less, but a large number of male gametes are produced, as many of them fail to reach the ova. However, in the seed plants, the pollen tubes help the non-motile male gametes to reach the female gametes. Now, some exceptional cases are there. In some organisms like rotifers, honeybees, birds like turkey, and even in some lizards, the female gamete, that is ovum, form new organism without fertilization. There is no fusion of male and female gamete. Without fertilization, the female gamete or the ovum produces the new organism, and this phenomenon is known as parthenogenesis. In animals, morphological and physiological changes occurs prior to and post reproductive phase. In honeybees, an interesting phenomenon is seen. The fertilized egg give rise to queens and worker bees, and unfertilized eggs develop into drones, which are males. Parthenocarpy is also one of the process in which the production of fruit takes place without fertilization of ovules. Thus, it results in formation of seedless fruits, and it may occur naturally or it can be induced artificially. Let us start with the next event, that is post-fertilization events. During the sexual reproduction, the events which takes place after the formation of zygote are called post-fertilization events. Post-fertilization events include zygote formation, embryogenesis. Now let us start with zygote formation. Fertilization, that is fusion of male and female gametes, leads to the formation of a diploid single cell which is called zygote. It is the vital link that ensures the continuity of species between the organisms of one generation and the next. Development of the zygote depends on number 1, type of life cycle of the organism, and second is the environment to which it is exposed. In the fungi and algae, the zygote undergoes a resting period before germination. A thick wall is developed around it which prevents it from desiccation and damage. In organisms with haplontic life cycle, haplontic, diplontic and haplodiplontic life cycle we have already studied in 11th class. So, in organisms with haplontic life cycle, zygote divides by meiosis to form haploid spores which grow into haploid individuals. On the contrary, In organisms with diplontic life cycle, zygote divides by mitosis, forming a haploid embryo which grows into diploid individual. Diploid embryo is produced which grows into diploid individual. In organisms with haplodiplontic life cycle, zygote divides mitotically to form diploid sporophyte. The latter creates haploid spores via meiosis, which divide mitotically to produce haploid gametophyte. The gametophytes produce gametes via mitosis. The second type of cell division, the second type of post-fertilization event is embryogenesis, which is the process of development of embryo from the zygote. Embryogenesis involves the different steps like cell division, mitosis to increase the number of cells, and second one is cell differentiation for the formation of different types of tissues and organs. Based on whether the development of the zygote takes place outside or inside the body of the female parent, animals are divided into two categories, that is oviparous and viviparous. The animals in which development of zygote takes place outside the female parent are called oviparous. They lay fertilized egg covered with hard calcareous shell in a safe place in the environment. Example, reptiles, birds. After a period of incubation, the young ones hatch out from the egg. And the animals in which the development of the zygote into young ones takes place inside the body of the female parent are called viviparous. After attaining a certain stage of growth, the young ones are delivered out of the body of the female organism. Example, majority of the mammals including humans. The chances of survival of young ones is greater of these organisms because of proper embryonic care and protection. In flowering plants, the zygote is formed inside the ovule. After fertilization, all the parts of the flower except the pistil wither and fall off. In some plants, such as tomato and brinjal, the sepals are persistent and remain attached to the developing fruit. In ovule, the zygote divides several times to form an embryo. The wall of the ovule becomes hard and develops into seed. With this developments, the wall of the ovary also starts to swell. As a result, the ovary develops into fruit, which develops a thick wall called pericarp, protective in function. When seeds mature, they are dispersed. Under favorable conditions, the seed germinate to produce new plant. So, external and internal fertilization we have already completed. Oviparous and viviparous also we have completed. These are the examples of the oviparous organisms. So that is all for today. With this we have completed the first chapter, okay, that is reproduction in organisms. In our next video we'll be starting with the new chapter. I hope you have understood. Thank you.